Good evening. Thank you for joining me tonight. We're going to be talking about how to regulate your nervous system, why to regulate your nervous system, and I'm going to be giving you some very simple tips as well as some more higher level tips. So what I want to do is break down the information tonight with you in a way that's really easy to understand, and also just to make sure that you're going to get something out of this as far as action steps, that you're going to take this information and implement it into your life in a way that's going to really improve your life, your health, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and all of that, your relationships and all of that as well. So I am Sarah Jo Poff. I have been a natural health practitioner for over 10 years. And this is something that really is overlooked a lot of times when we're talking about natural health, and even in the conventional field, of course, because it's often missed as the common denominator in the root in a lot of health issues. So whatever you're facing with your health, with the health of a loved one, I hope that you get something out of this. One of the things I want to first start off with this is take a minute. Are your shoulders hunched? Are you taking shallow breaths? I am a little bit because I want to make sure I bring you good information. But a lot of times we are doing these things and we don't even notice. So I thought I would take a minute for us to just relax our shoulders, take a deep breath, and enjoy some information with a clear brain. So you may have seen me share this information, and a lot of times we talk about, number one, abs aren't made in the gym. They're made in the kitchen. But also, so many people have that hard to lose belly fat. And no matter how much you work out, no matter what you do with a diet, it might still be there. And that's truly one of the key symptoms of a nervous system that's really not operating properly and instead is really creating a lot of cortisol and stress hormone in the body. So you can see if any of these other symptoms apply to you or someone you know. Pretty much most people deal with some of these, some more than others, of course. Now, there are a lot of names for a dysregulated nervous system, and some even have official diagnostic codes in the conventional medical world. And really, they just go back to the nervous system. So sometimes we call it burnout, sometimes we call it ADHD, sometimes we call it depression, sometimes we call it post-traumatic stress disorder. And while those may have differing components to them, a lot of times these all really truly go back to the state that our nervous system is spending the most time in. And it's not just a mental state. So I want to clarify that right up front. When we're talking about the nervous system, that's a physical symptom of, or physical system of the body. So when we're talking about a dysregulated nervous system, what we're talking about is a series of chronic stressors that affect the autonomic nervous system and then the HPA axis of the body. And so that's how it really affects all of these areas of the endocrine system, the hormones and the adrenals, even the thyroid and things like that, as well as anything autoimmune, food allergies and things like that. So before we get into the information tonight, what I would like for you to do is take something, whether it's the notes in your phone or a piece of paper that you're going to write. And I know that when we are chronically dysregulated in this way, we might allow ourselves to take in some information, but the implementing of that information is kind of where the rubber meets the road. And that's sometimes where we struggle because we feel burnt out, we feel overwhelmed and things like that. So for tonight's class, I want you to get something where you will take notes and write down the steps that you will take after this information tonight. Write them in the order that you will take them, and anything else to do to make sure that you are implementing this information to improve your health. One of the things that this will do for you is, you can just lay it out really easy, step by step. And I have different levels of achieving this that I'm going to give you tonight. First, we need to talk about stress. When I say stress tonight, when I say stress as I'm sharing information on my page, I'm not necessarily talking about emotional stress, although that is part of it. I'm not talking about the kids stressing you out, or your spouse, or the workplace, or something, traffic or something. Those are part of stress or stressors in our lives. But there are so much more, and these are things that we need to consider tonight if we're going to support a regulated nervous system. So we're going to be talking about the physical stressors and how to help with those, and keep in mind some of these too, and not that they're all avoidable. And so when I'm talking about stress and stressors tonight, I'm not saying that we need to avoid all of these things. I'm saying we're going to learn how to combat a life with them. Some of them we do need to avoid, and some of them we can avoid. So we're going to learn how to handle them without them being stress on our bodies as much as possible. So keep in mind the physical stressors, some of which we'll talk about tonight. That would be blood sugar dysregulation, lack of sleep, poor diet, excess weight, injury, scars, tattoos. Those kinds of things are also surgery. Those are stressors on our body. Nutritional deficiencies are stress on our bodies. And there's also environmental and social stressors, toxins, relationships, screens, the constant notifications that we have in our society, trauma, dehydration, and actually even things like clutter and a messy home can be a stressor on our body and our mind. There are actually some health practices that can be stressful to the body as well, depending on the person. Those might include intermittent fasting and cold plunging. So keep that in mind too when we're considering the ways that we can reduce the stressors on our body, as well as learning how to combat the unavoidable stressors. So the goal in really supporting a healthy nervous system is to eliminate or reduce as many stressors that are unnecessary in our lives, on our body, and then learning to handle the ones that are unavoidable or that are just a natural part of life. So again, some of those that we maybe need to consider avoiding, depending on where we're at. If you're really chronically dysregulated, intermittent fasting, cold plunging, even saunas might not be good for you. So things like that. One thing I want to note before we go on is that our goal here isn't to never have our body sort of be that dysregulated. Dysregulated, when I'm talking about a dysregulated nervous system, I'm talking about our body being in a state of stress more than it's in a state of rest. So we're going to talk a little bit quickly about the different states of the autonomic nervous system. We've got the sympathetic and we've got the parasympathetic. And sometimes these can get confusing because when we hear sympathetic, we're like, oh, that's kind of the calm one, but it's actually the opposite of that. So the sympathetic nervous system is that fight or flight response. And so this is where our heartbeat goes up, glucose from our body goes into our muscles, and to give us that energy that we need to, run from a bear. So it takes away energy from our gut and it puts it into our muscles. This is also where the bladder gets relaxed. And so that's where we had that post about, about those with chronic bladder issues. It can be a part of having a chronically dysregulated nervous system. You can see how it being in this state for too long, too often, really affects so many organs of the body. So if we are, running our heart rate higher all the time, and we're not getting the energy in our body to digest our food because it's going away from our intestines into our muscles, then we've got digestive issues, and we've got gallbladder issues, and then we've got, bladder issues and things like that. So we've got the parasympathetic nervous system, and this is the rest and digest phase. So this is where our bladder contracts the way that it's supposed to. Energy goes to our gut to digest food properly. And we achieve our resting heart rate and things like that. So again, I want to just reiterate too that the sympathetic nervous system is not a bad thing. It's just when we have that our body in that mode too often. The sympathetic nervous system is important for a lot of things. Some of those are building muscle, endurance, sweating, and things like that that are good for us. It's just a matter of how often we're in the fight or flight or rest and digest mode. So I'm going to talk about the things that we can do to regulate our nervous system in levels. So I gave this to you to kind of break it down because, like I said, I know that sometimes when our nervous system is just chronically dysregulated, we feel overwhelmed. And so I wanted to simplify this for you. So level 1, this is stuff that you can do very easily. And if you're not already doing them, I want you to implement them starting tonight. So diaphragmatic breathing and stretching. This is free and it's easy. One of the things for me when I was learning how to regulate my nervous system was actually just learning how to do diaphragmatic breathing, and not just doing it consciously, but also having it become more of a subconscious way that I would breathe. So if you aren't familiar with diaphragmatic breathing, this is where you're breathing in through your nose. And when you do it the right way, your diaphragm, your abdomen, basically your stomach is expanding out as you take the air in. A lot of times we actually breathe the other way when we're breathing, and you'll find yourself kind of sucking in, and that's not the right way for this. So diaphragmatic breathing is where your stomach will expand with air, and then you will hold that in there, and you will release that air through your mouth while your stomach comes in and pushes the air out. So that's something you can practice. This is something really good to do when you're in a stressful situation as well. But waking up in the morning, because we have high cortisol in the morning naturally, and that's not a bad thing. But if you have stressors right away coming at you in the morning, that can be a really great thing to do as soon as you wake up. When you do it in stretches like child's pose and things like that. For me, when I was learning how to do diaphragmatic breathing, I found that learning how to do it in child's pose was actually the best way for me to really learn it and start having it just be an automatic way of breathing for me. Because when you're in child's pose, you can watch your stomach and just kind of watch the process and see it more easily. So that's something that's free and easy, and you can do that morning and night and whenever you're in stressful situations. Diffusing and applying essential oils that are researched for their effects on the nervous system. This is what I call passive regulation. And so basically it's kind of something that, you'll fill up your diffuser, or you'll take an oil and you'll breathe it in. But when you're diffusing it, it's kind of passive, where it's just happening and it's just helping your body without you really doing anything at that point. And I'll talk a little bit more about which ones to use for that. And then don't minimize or underestimate the power of time outdoors in nature and grounding. I know for me, sometimes if I'm struggling emotionally or something, there's something really powerful about just getting outside and getting my feet on the ground. And then just, breathing in the outdoors and things like that. So child's pose, I probably won't demonstrate it, but you're going to basically lay down on your knees and put your arms forward. So you can check out some videos and stuff like that. So the number one oil that I want to share with you for helping is what we call hunched, and the other name for it is the Japanese name for it. And I won't get too complicated with this, but one of the things I just want you to take away is from this research, what they found is that after inhalation, the body demonstrated all the signs of activating the parasympathetic nervous system. So that was decreased heart rate, decreased blood pressure, it calmed the body. The study reported that the sympathetic nervous activity was significantly decreased. That's the fight or flight response. And the parasympathetic activity was significantly increased. So it decreased blood pressure, it stimulated activity in the stomach and the intestines. So this is really key. And I'm going to say this again. It stimulates activity in the stomach and the intestines, because remember when we were talking about the parasympathetic nervous system, we were talking about rest and digest, or you have the sympathetic, which is the fight or flight. when the body's in fight or flight, it takes the body's energy away from the intestines into the muscles. You're not digesting food properly when you're eating while you're stressed. So that's how we get food allergies and gut issues. So that's why that particular part of the study is so key to me, that the inhalation of this hung quai oil stimulated activity into the stomach and the intestines as part of putting the body into the rest or digest phase. So the conclusion was, our results strongly suggest that hung quai essential oil could be suitable agents for the development of regulators of sympathetic nervous system dysfunction. So hopefully now you can see why this is the #1 oil that I choose for this. Now there's lots of ways you can use it. You can diffuse it. One of the things that I do with it is I take it out and I will set the bottle. This isn't hung quai, by the way. I don't have it with me, but it's a green label. Is take it and just leave the cap off and set it on the dinner table. And as we're breathing it in before we eat, it's going to help stimulate our body to be in the rest and digest mode. So let me get into a couple more that have research behind them for this specifically. So hung quai we talked about. Frankincense is another one. Frankincense calms the nerves. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, and it's shown to reduce the cortisol stress response. Rosemary, which is the one that I have here, and I use this one a lot. It supports the HPA axis, so this is a really great one to support your adrenals, and it supports blood pressure as well as a side bonus. And another reason why I use it multiple times a day is because it protects the body against EMF. So I will just go like that and use this one all the time. Clary sage. The research showed that after inhalation of clary sage oil, cortisol levels were significantly decreased. So that's a good one as well. Chamomile supports the body and brain in releasing tension and frustration. Bergamot is another one. It is antispasmodic and has a relaxing effect. It helps relieve nervous tension and anxious feelings. So these are things that you can just pop in a diffuser or just apply like I just showed you and support your body's response to stress. Let's see here. Okay. Level 2. So we went through level 1. Those are things that you can do easily and very inexpensively and support your body that way. Yes, I agree, Joy. I love the way these smell too. They're so good together and by themselves. All of them really are good by themselves. Level 2. So once you've achieved level 1, I want to encourage you to work on level 2. Of course, we're going to put sleep on here because when you're not sleeping properly, that is a major stressor on your body. So sometimes we have a situation in life where we can't get the sleep that we want, but most of the time there are little things that we can do. One of the things that you can do to prioritize or improve your sleep that you might not think about is to make sure you're not eating food 2 to 3 hours before sleep. So I've experimented with this because I've heard these things and I don't ever take anything for face value. I always want to research it myself and see, is there merit behind this one? So I have taken this information and I put it to play for myself. I have an Oura Ring on and it tests my sleep and it tests my heart rate variability when I'm sleeping. So what I found was that if I eat before bed, my heart rate doesn't achieve that ideal resting state and variability that shows that my body has relaxed sufficiently. So I found that pretty interesting. Heart rate variability is actually something you can use to test if your nervous system is somewhat regulated. A lower heart rate variability will show that your nervous system may really need some extra support. So I won't get into that too much right now. Consistent exercise also is obviously very important. And one of the things that I want to know about exercise is that you've got to remember that this stored fight or flight energy, it has to go somewhere. It's either going to go in that moment where you feel like raging at something, or it's going to go into exercise. So if you want to minimize the amount of fight or flight energy that's stored in your body that goes towards your kids or your spouse or somebody you love or at your workplace or something, make sure it goes into exercise. Because without having that outlet for it, this energy builds up in the body. Another cool thing about exercise is that it helps the body have very distinct times of being in these modes, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. It sort of gives it a thing and says, hey, okay, we're in sympathetic mode. Oh, this is sympathetic mode. Okay, this is where we pump our muscles and things like that. Okay, so now we can see that when we're over here, we're not exercising, we're not in that mode. So this must be where we rest and digest. So it's kind of like retraining our body as far as what mode to be in when we have consistent exercise. The one precaution that I want to issue is a lot of people who have a chronically dysregulated nervous system also have very stressed adrenals and hormones. In that case, certain exercises are going to be perceived as stress on the body and actually make things worse. So what I would encourage you to do is focus on exercise that does not raise your heart rate over about 150, 160 beats per minute. And so for me, what I started out doing when I was starting to heal everything was I would do reps just until my heart rate hit like 150. And then I would stop and I would do diaphragmatic breathing until my heart rate got to down about 100 or just slightly under that. And then I would do another rep. So that's one way to support your body in exercise, but not have it be stress that, you know, keeps your adrenals from healing and things like that. You can also work on exercise like walking and things like that, swimming and things that really don't put so much stress on the body as well. One of the things I'm going to say for regulating is tailoring your social media and your television. Watching news, following the news, doom and gloom things, there are very real consequences for our nervous system on those kinds of things. Doing these activates the sympathetic nervous system. It feeds the stress and the cortisol in our bodies. Research found a link between increased exposure to news and depression and PTSD symptoms, showing that it does activate that fight or flight mode of our body. TV and social media news is associated with stronger emotional distress. So that's why part of healing our chronically dysregulated nervous system is tailoring our social media and our TV to things that are unnecessary, things that we can't do anything about and doesn't do us any good to know. Now, remember, we talked about diet and nutritional deficiencies because nutritional deficiencies are stress on the body. When we are low in nutrients, this stresses all of our body symptoms. Stress depletes these key nutrients the most: vitamin C, B vitamins, and magnesium. These deficiencies feed disease that also adds stress on the body. So replenishing them is really key to stopping this cycle that we're going to be talking about. Vitamin C, it reduces physical and psychological effects of stress. High dosing vitamin C lowers physiological response to stressors on the body. And that's a really key nutrient for our adrenals, which is the glands that help support our bodies in stress. I want to share a story with you, and this one really sticks with me a lot and reminds me just of the power of vitamin C in high dosing it. So when I talk about vitamin C for supporting our response to stress, a couple thousand milligrams a day is beneficial, but I would encourage you to even think bigger than that. In the 1970s, a man and his wife were in a head-on collision. When the ambulance arrived, they were actually shocked to see that neither of these two were in shock. The man was told that he would never fully walk again, but he was fully recovered and walking again in 3 months. So what was their secret? Prior to the accident, him and his wife were regularly taking many grams of vitamin C a day. So many grams, that's, many thousands of milligrams. While in the hospital, he increased it to 50 to 60 grams per day, which is 50 to 60,000 milligrams a day. So most of the supplements you have, or the dosing, is going to be about 1 to 2,000 milligrams per serving. So we're talking about lots and lots and lots more. So that's something to consider and research if you haven't already researched high dosing vitamin C. Let's see here. So, okay. And then B vitamins are very much depleted during times of stress, and that depletion actually increases the stress on the body. We're going to talk about magnesium here too, because that's huge, 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 huge. If you're going to pick one to supplement with, pick magnesium. Magnesium plays a key role in the regulation and neurotransmission of the normal stress response. And here's the thing: stress increases the loss of magnesium in the body, which causes the deficiency. And then in turn, this deficiency enhances the body's susceptibility to stress, which causes this vicious cycle. The only way to get out of this vicious cycle is to replenish magnesium in the body. Doesn't a lot of vitamin C make your oral tissue sore or ulcerated? No, it does not, and it shouldn't. And if it does, it might be the source or the kind or something like that. So magnesium is this way to get out of this vicious stress cycle on the body. I will say that it's really key, of course, as to which one you're getting, how much you're taking. Most people are not taking enough and taking the right kind in order to actually replenish the deficiency and combat the daily stress. So remember, when we're dosing to fill what has been deficient for so long, as well as combating today's stress. Another thing to keep in mind are the things that deplete magnesium from the body. Aside from stress, that would be caffeine, alcohol, lack of sleep, blood sugar spikes, and things like that. So you need to account for those. For me, if I'm under extra stress, I will take more magnesium. So the other thing is, we talked about the importance of sleep and how proper sleep helps reduce the stress on the body. Magnesium supports better sleep, and it decreases cortisol. So this is key. And those of you who know me know that my favorite way to get magnesium is not an isolated form. It is mineral essence from Young Living, because it is the naturally occurring magnesium in conjunction with all of the other naturally occurring minerals from the Great Salt Lake. And that is the only one for me that truly got me to be able to replenish and combat the daily need for magnesium. There are other forms, and I do take other forms personally. I take mineral essence every single day. And I also will often take magnesium malate in the morning, which is more of an energizing magnesium that helps support ATP production in the body. And then I'll also take super magnesium from Young Living at night for bedtime. And that is amazing for sleep as well. That was level 2. Let's go on to level 3. You can take screenshots of these and make sure that you do it one at a time so that you are not overwhelmed. And then we're done. So balancing blood sugar. Don't wait to do this. This will really, truly solve so many of your health problems. This will also help you get to the weight that you want to look for, and help your hormones, help really work on reversing autoimmune issues and things like that as well. So if you're new around here or you aren't familiar with my website and things like that, I have a free class on balancing your blood sugar. I have a group called The Level Life on Facebook. You can get lots of information in those on the topic. But keep in mind that blood sugar spikes happen to 80% of people that are not diabetics. I mean, it happens to 100% of people who are diabetic. It happens to 80% of people who are not diabetic. So you're like, I don't have diabetes, my blood sugar's fine. It's not. I think it's probably like, I can't remember the statistics, but it's very few people who actually have a stable blood sugar. And this takes work. Even eating a healthy diet, I found when I first started testing my blood sugar that I was having blood sugar spikes. And that was why I felt so tired after, within an hour or so after lunch or that afternoon crash, and things like that. So this is truly key, because those spikes are stress on the body. One thing to remember is that when your blood sugar spikes, your body's going to produce insulin to get that glucose down. When that happens, a lot of times the body doesn't get it right. I know that before I understood this, I thought that the body would just make just enough insulin to really combat that glucose spike and just do it before it spiked and keep it level. But that's sadly not the case. So when we're consuming these, refined sugar and refined carbs and things like that, and our blood sugar spikes, the insulin that it produces, oftentimes what happens is our blood sugar drops very rapidly. When it does that, the body says, hey, wait, we got to do something really fast. Otherwise, we're going to die. Because if your blood sugar goes too low, you will have hypoglycemia. Could have seizures and you could die. So our body says, quick, hurry up, pump out a bunch of this kind of stuff. So it pumps out epinephrine and cortisol and adrenaline, and then it pumps glucose into our body in order to stop it from going too low. That epinephrine and that cortisol and that adrenaline is massive stress on our bodies. And what happens is when this is happening with every meal now, and I want to just clarify for those of you who aren't following the information on blood sugar, the high sugar fruits, caffeine, a lot of things that people are eating every day that don't realize are not healthy or are causing these issues are doing that. Gluten-free, healthy gluten-free buns, or those, paleo tortillas and those paleo chips and things like that. They're spiking blood sugar. When that's happening with every meal, it's just this constant like this, and the body is just like in fight or flight with every meal because it's like, okay, be ready to panic, be ready to pump out a bunch of adrenaline and epinephrine so that we don't die. And that's a huge part of why our body is in this chronic dysregulated nervous system state. So a spike would basically, and it varies. So a blood sugar spike is anything over 120 is not ideal for good health. But it depends. If your blood sugar is at 75 and you go up to 115, that's a 40-point spike. That's a spike. So it could still be in normal range, what we consider like 70 to 120. But if it's going from this to this and it's still in normal range, that's still a spike. So we don't just look at the range, we look at the spike. But for me personally, as I started out, I noticed anything over 140 made me feel like poo. Now, of course, that so much of this that we're talking about goes back to our spiritual health. And so, of course, taking every thought captive is massively important because remember, our actions originate from a thought. So behind every action is a thought. There's a thought there that's causing us to act this way. And I found that really getting to the root of what is this thought that's causing me to act like this, very key in helping me minimize my response to things. So that's a huge part of this, is minimizing our response to things. This is where we have unnecessary stressors on our body because we don't have to respond in a certain way to everything. So yes, high sugar fruits, you can check out my Live a Life group. I have tons of information on that. I have information on getting a CGM without a local doctor prescribing it and things like that. You can find all of that in the group, The Level Life. Some of them are in the featured tab and things like that too. One thing I have to say is to evaluate relationships. Sometimes there are people in our lives that keep our nervous system, or we allow to keep our nervous system in fight or flight all of the time. And as long as that's going on, healing will be very difficult. So we need to evaluate the relationships that we have with people who we're allowing in our lives and, how we're responding to them as well. One of the things that helps me a lot is to remember that I don't have to defend myself. I don't have to react to everything. Those are choices that I have, and I can make better choices in those to help support my health and my relationships. Emotional coaching has been huge for me. When I first started this, I truly wasn't able to really understand the thoughts that were behind the actions that I was having. And so emotional coaching really gave me a launch to be able to do that on my own. And I do have somebody that I love and I highly recommend. So you can message me if you want that information. Why are we going to do all this? Why are we going to go through levels 1, 2, and 3? Why are we going to do the work to help support a regulated nervous system? Not just for the people around us, although that's huge, is because look at how these things are going to change our lives. I mean, to not feel a pull to that anxious energy, to not feel a pull to react, to be able to just go, I'm not gonna get into that one. Has been so healing for me personally. To really be more aware of your breathing and body. Are your shoulders hunched? Are you taking lots of short breaths? Or are you breathing well? To not be set off by every little thing. That was one of my huge goals. And that's been really great for me as I work and continue to grow on that one. To be able to pause and think rather than react when we're in that fight or flight mode, our brain doesn't totally work well. And the thing about that is because our brain's not thinking properly in that mode, a lot of times we will act in ways that we wouldn't act otherwise. So it gives us a way of, just reacting and responding better when we don't activate that nervous system mode of fight or flight in those situations. And your energy level increases. And this is, of course, in addition to all of the things that we talked about in the beginning for our physical symptoms, things like the hormones and the weight and the chronic fatigue and the body pain and autoimmune issues and things like that. These are just some of the things that as you go through these levels of healing, you'll notice that they are really beneficial and powerful, and they'll motivate you to keep going on this journey. So thank you for joining me. I want to give you a little bit more information. If somebody invited you to this, I want you to go back to them. If you don't have a Young Living account, make sure you go back to them and get the things that we talked about. Another thing that I didn't talk about that's been my huge thing, and if you follow me on any of my platforms, that I talk about the supplement Cortistop all of the time. That's been huge for helping me support my body's response to stress as well. So just talk to the person who invited you here. If that was me, message me. You can message me on Instagram. You can contact me through my website, or you can email me, and I will give you a link to the things that we talked about tonight, and a discount code and things like that. So make sure you get those. The person who invited you here, if it wasn't me, they will also have a discount code for you on some of those things like the oils and the magnesium and things that we talked about. So let me just see if we have any questions here. Christine, amen. I appreciate that so much. I can't even tell you how much I appreciate that. So you guys, make sure you message me with any questions, please. I will make sure to get through all the messages as much as I can. I really, truly, truly appreciate you guys joining me for this tonight. And I'm really honored that you guys would come to me and allow me to share information with you guys. I don't take your trust lightly. So I hope that you're blessed by the information, and I would invite you to just share it. I'll have the YouTube link up as soon as I've got the video uploaded, and then it'll also go in my newsletter. So if you're not subscribed to my email newsletter, you can go to my website and click. That's free. It goes out every week, so you don't have to be on social media to catch the information. It'll come right to your email inbox. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you so much. God bless you, and I will see you later.